Imagine this for a second. What if everything you've been told about modern women thriving on their own, being independent, strong, and completely self sufficient was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion that's now shattering right before our eyes? What if the loudest voices screaming, "I don't need a man," are the very same ones quietly crumbling under the weight of reality, facing poverty, isolation, and despair without anyone to lean on? Today, we're diving deep into a raw, unfiltered breakdown from a woman who's finally admitting the truth that so many are terrified to say out loud. Women are struggling desperately without men. They're lying about it to save face. And the consequences of men walking away are devastating lives on a scale that's only going to explode as things get worse. Stick with me until the very end, because by the time we're done, you'll see exactly why this isn't just a trend. It's a full blown crisis that's about to hit critical mass, and the fallout will change everything you thought you knew about relationships, society, and survival. If you're getting value from this, smash that like button, share this video with every man and woman who needs to hear it, and subscribe right now for more no holds barred, angry guy content that cuts through the nonsense. And listen, if you want to take control of your financial future, protect your assets, and learn how to actually build real wealth in this chaotic world, head over to Angry's Crypto Academy. That's where I teach you step by step how to buy, sell, and trade crypto the right way. No hype, no scams, just solid strategies to grow and safeguard what you've worked for. The link is in the description below. So pause this video right now and go check it out. You owe it to yourself. All right, let's get into this. I recently came across this live stream from a woman who's fed up with the lies, and she's laying it all out there in a way that's impossible to ignore. She's not some red pill guru or a man pointing fingers. She's a woman looking around at her peers, at the data, at the real lives being lived, and she's calling it like she sees it. Women cannot survive without men, not thrive, not flourish, survive. And right now, millions of women are barely hanging on, pretending everything is fine while their worlds fall apart behind closed doors. She's breaking it down point by point. And as the angry guy, I'm here to amplify that message, expand on it, and drive home why this is the most underdiscussed catastrophe unfolding in real time. She starts by painting the picture we all see, but few want to admit: the rise of the independent woman who swore up and down she didn't need a man for anything. Career first, fun first, freedom first. Men were optional at best, toxic at worst. But fast forward a decade or two, and what's the reality? Record levels of female depression, anxiety, antidepressant use skyrocketing among white women, loneliness epidemics hitting women harder than men in almost every study. And now, as the economy tightens its grip, women sliding into poverty at rates that should be setting off every alarm bell in the country. She's blunt about it. Women are not surviving without men. They're existing, they're coping, they're putting on a brave face on social media with the filtered selfies and the living my best life captions, while behind the scenes, they're stressed out of their minds, trying to pay bills that used to be split two ways. They're exhausted, raising kids alone if they have them. Or they're staring at empty apartments, wondering why no one checks on them anymore if they don't. And here's where it gets real. She points out that this isn't just anecdotal. Look at the numbers. Women initiate around 80% of divorces. Women have been told for decades they can have it all without compromise. But now those same women, post divorce, are seeing their standard of living plummet while the ex husband often rebounds financially. Why? Because two incomes, two sets of hands, two providers and protectors create a buffer that one person alone simply cannot replicate in most cases. She talks about how women were sold this dream of hyper independence, but biology, economics, and basic human nature don't care about slogans. Men, on average, still out earn women in the vast majority of high paying fields. Men still do the overwhelming majority of dangerous, high risk jobs that keep society running. Men are still physically stronger on average, which matters when it comes to protection, heavy lifting, or just feeling safe walking to your car at night. And when men walk away, not just from individual women, but from the entire game of marriage, dating, cohabitation, a vacuum is created that women are now falling into head first. This is where the men walking away movement hits hardest. When good men decide the juice isn't worth the squeeze, when they see the family courts rigged against them, when they see the cultural hatred directed at masculinity, when they realize that providing and protecting often gets them labeled toxic or taken for granted, they opt out. They go build their businesses, hit the gym, travel with their boys, stack their money, and live peaceful lives. And who pays the price? The women who spent years saying they didn't want or need those men in the first place. She's seeing it in her own circle. Women in their late 30s, 40s, 50s who bought the feminist narrative hook, line, and sinker. Career was everything, men were speed bumps at best. Kids, maybe later, or maybe with a sperm donor, or maybe not at all. Now they're hitting the wall hard. No husband, no partner, maybe a child or two from a previous relationship that the father is minimally involved with. Because let's be honest, the system incentivizes him to stay distant, savings depleted, rent eating up 50, 60, 70% of their income in many cities. Groceries, forget about it. Prices are insane, and there's no one to split the Costco run with anymore. She describes women breaking down in private, admitting they can't do this alone, but publicly still posting the queen memes and talking about how much better off they are single. Why the lie, Sadag? Pride. Decades of conditioning. Admitting they were wrong would mean admitting that their mothers, their professors, the media, the entire culture lied to them. It would mean swallowing the biggest dose of humble pie imaginable. So instead, they double down, they cope harder, they blame all men while secretly praying a good one falls into their lap. But the economy isn't waiting for anyone to wake up. Inflation is crushing the middle class. Jobs that used to support a family now barely support one person. Women who chose careers in fields like teaching, nursing, HR, social work, fields that are overwhelmingly female, are finding their salaries haven't kept pace with the cost of living for 20 years. Meanwhile, the trades, tech, engineering, the high paying gigs that men dominate, those are the ones keeping people afloat. When you remove the male provider from the equation, you're left with one income trying to do the work of two. And in most cases, it's the lower income. Single mothers, she spends a lot of time on this, and it's brutal but true. The poverty rates for single mother households are through the roof compared to married couples. These women are working two jobs, relying on government assistance that barely covers basics, kids in daycare they can't really afford, no time to date even if they wanted to, burning out by 35. And who steps in when the car breaks down? When the kid gets sick? When the landlord raises rent again? Often no one. Friends get tired, family gets older. And the ex? He's moved on, paying child support that doesn't begin to cover the real costs while he rebuilds his life. Then there are the childless ones, the ones who thought their 20s and 30s were for finding themselves and climbing the corporate ladder. Now they're 45, successful on paper maybe, but coming home to an empty apartment every night. Cats are great, wine is fine, girls' trips are expensive distractions, but when the facade cracks, and it always does, there's no one there, health issues start creeping in. A bad diagnosis, surgery, recovery, who's taking care of you, who's bringing the groceries when you can't walk, who's holding your hand when the doctor gives bad news. For married women, it's usually the husband stepping up without question. For these women, often nobody. She's seeing women in their 50s now facing eviction because they never built wealth with a partner. No dual income home ownership, no combined retirement accounts, just whatever they managed to scrape together alone, which for most isn't enough. Social Security? Laughable. And as healthcare costs explode, being alone becomes a financial death sentence. The depression statistics she brings up are staggering. Women are diagnosed with depression at twice the rate of men. Antidepressant prescriptions for women have absolutely exploded, suicide attempts higher. Therapy waiting lists longer than ever. And why? Isolation is a killer. Humans are wired for pair bonding, for family units, for protection and provision roles that complement each other. When you rip that apart and tell half the population they don't need the other half, you create misery on a generational scale. And here's the part that should terrify everyone: it's only going to get worse. The economy is showing no signs of real recovery for the average person. Artificial intelligence is coming for white collar jobs that many educated women spent years preparing for. Rents are insane. Home ownership for single people under 40 is a pipe dream in most cities. Fertility windows are closing or closed. The dating market is a wasteland because high value men are checking out entirely. Why risk it when peace is priceless? Women in their 20s and early 30s are still riding the high of youth, attention, options. They're listening to the same podcasts, reading the same books, repeating the same mantras. But in 10 years, 15, they're going to be the next wave hitting this wall at full speed. And there will be even fewer men willing to catch them because those men will have watched what happened to their fathers, their uncles, their friends. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. She's pleading, actually pleading for women to wake up, stop the delusion, admit that traditional roles existed for a reason, that men and women need each other in fundamental ways, that protection and provision from men isn't oppression. It's a gift that women used to cherish and reciprocate with respect, nurturing, loyalty. But pride is one hell of a drug. And for so many, it's going to be the thing that keeps them dying on this hill alone. As the angry guy, I've been saying this for years, but hearing it from a woman makes it hit different. This isn't hate. This isn't misogyny. This is reality screaming in everyone's face while too many cover their ears. Men walking away isn't cruelty, it's self preservation. And the consequence is that women are now forced to live the independence they demanded, and it's breaking them. Let that sink in for a moment. They demanded it, they celebrated it, they shamed men who wanted traditional relationships, they weaponized the courts, the culture, the narrative. And now that men are giving them exactly what they asked for: space, independence, no toxic masculinity holding them back, they can't handle it. The strong, independent mask is cracking, and underneath is fear, exhaustion, and regret on a level that's heartbreaking if it wasn't so predictable. She tells story after story, women confessing in private that they regret divorcing good husbands over boredom or wanting to find themselves. Women who fry-vorsed thinking the grass was greener, only to end up sharing apartments with roommates at 48 because they can't afford to live alone. Women who froze their eggs thinking career first, baby later, only to find out the tech doesn't work as advertised, and now they're facing childlessness forever. Women who bought the men are trash narrative so completely that they alienated every decent guy who showed interest, and now they're swiping on apps where the top 10% of men have endless options and zero incentive to commit. And the health toll, she doesn't shy away from this either. Women aging alone face accelerated decline. No one to encourage the gym habit, no one to cook healthy meals with, no one to notice when you're drinking a little too much wine every night to cope with the silence. Stress hormones through the roof from carrying everything solo. Cortisol ages you fast. And when the body starts breaking down, and it will, there's no husband to drive you to appointments, to research treatments, to fight for you when the system tries to write you off. This is the future feminism built: empty apartments, broken bodies, shattered finances, and a culture that still tells young girls this is empowerment. We're barely scratching the surface here, but already the picture is grim. In the next part, we're going deeper into why so few women can bring themselves to apologize, to change course, to beg men to come back, even as they're drowning. We're going to look at the psychological traps, the sunk cost fallacy of a lifetime spent believing the lie, and why, for many, It's going to take hitting absolute rock bottom before they even consider swallowing their pride. Now, let's slow this down for a second and really look at why so few of these women can bring themselves to stand up, look in the mirror, and say the words that would actually start the healing process. I was wrong. I was sold a lie. I need men. I want a husband. I want the life my grandmother warned me not to throw away. Why is that sentence stuck in so many throats like a bone they can't cough up and can't swallow? It starts in childhood. From the moment these girls could walk, they were bathed in messages that men were the enemy, or, at best, disposable accessories. Disney princesses don't need princes anymore. They're CEOs now. Teachers in school, mostly women, praising the girls for being smarter and more mature while openly shaming the boys for being boys. By the time they're 10, they're already internalizing that males are a problem to be managed, not partners to be cherished. Fast forward to college, where the feminist professors and the Title IX offices and the slut walk culture hammer it home. Your body, your choice, your power, and any man who disagrees is a threat. They graduate with degrees in gender studies or communications, drowning in debt, believing they have been empowered when in reality they've been weaponized against their own future happiness. Then society hands them the script for their 20s: sleep around to explore, focus on career, travel, brunch, collect handbags, live in overpriced apartments with three other girls doing the exact same thing. Every time a decent guy tries to get serious before she's 30, he's labeled clingy, controlling, or moving too fast. She dumps him because her friends told her she can do better, and because TikTok said her hoe phase is sacred. The culture celebrates her body count like it's a badge of honor, while quietly erasing the data that shows the higher it goes, the lower her chances of ever pair bonding successfully become. By the time she's 33, 35, 38, the script flips, but the programming doesn't. The same friends who cheered her carousel rides are now panicking quietly in group chats about fertility clinics. The same professors who told her marriage was oppression are retiring with husbands who paid for their houses decades ago. But admitting any of this would mean admitting that every choice she made in her prime years was guided by a philosophy that hated men, hated family, and hated her future self. That's not just embarrassment, that's existential level shame, the sunk cost fallacy on steroids. She's invested her identity, her social circle, her Instagram aesthetic, her entire worldview, and I don't need a man. To flip now would be to torch all of it. So what does she do instead? She copes. It's all me. She copes hard. She gets the dog that's her baby. She gets the filler and the Botox to stretch youth a few more years. She posts the living my best life reels in exotic locations paid for with credit cards. She tells herself the loneliness is just temporary, that Mr. Right is just around the corner, that the apps are the problem, not her standards that now require a man to be taller, richer, fitter, funnier, and more patient than any human male has ever been, while simultaneously accepting that she brings chaos, debt, and quite possibly another man's child to the table. Meanwhile, the men have watched all of this unfold in real time. They've seen their fathers destroyed in divorce court. They've seen their buddies pay alimony to women who left them for not being exciting enough. They've seen the culture call them predators for wanting a woman under 35 with a low body count. They've done the math and realized that peace, money in the bank, a gym membership, and a passport are a far better deal than stepping into a ring where the rules are written exclusively against them. So they walk quietly, peacefully, and in ever growing numbers. And every time another man walks, another woman falls further behind. Because here's the part nobody wants to say out loud: men were never just paychecks, they were the buffer between women and the brutality of the world. When the car breaks down at 10 p.m. in a bad neighborhood, who used to show up? When the creepy guy won't leave her alone at the bar, who used to step in? When she's pregnant and exhausted and can't even stand long enough to cook, who used to bring home dinner and rub her feet? When the doctor says cancer, Who used to be there every single appointment, researching treatments at 3 a.m.? Remove that man, and all of those moments become hers to face alone, or with the village that exists only in feminist memes and never in real life. I want you to picture a woman. Let's call her Jessica, 46 years old, moderately successful marketing manager, lives in a mid-tier city where rent just hit 3 grand for a one-bedroom. She bought the whole package: career, travel, fun, no kids. Yet, she had a serious boyfriend at 29 who wanted to get married and start a family. She left him because she wasn't ready and because her friend said there would be plenty more. There weren't. The apps gave her endless validation, but no commitment. The last semi serious guy she dated ghosted her after she told him on date 3 that she didn't want to rush into labels. Now, Jessica comes home to an apartment that smells like dry cat food and Pinot Grigio. She scrolls TikTok and sees 25-year-old girls living the life she lived 15 years ago, and something inside her breaks a little more every night. Her mother is in a nursing home 2 states away, getting more fragile by the month. Jessica's savings are gone from helping mom with bills because there's no husband to split the load. Her health insurance deductible is $8,000, and she's been putting off a lump she found because she's terrified of the bill. Her best friend from college is in the middle of an ugly divorce and has her own chaos. No one has bandwidth for anyone else's breakdown anymore. Jessica cries in the shower where no one can hear her. She prays, actually prays for a good man to come into her life, but she can't bring herself to delete the dating apps that let her filter for men over 6 feet tall, making 6 figures, because lowering her standards would be admitting defeat. So she stays stuck. She tells her therapist she's working on herself. She tells her remaining single friends that she's happier than ever. And every month the rent is due, another piece of her soul gets sold off to keep the lights on. Multiply Jessica by millions. That's the scale we're talking about. And it's not just the childless ones. The single mothers are in an even darker place. Imagine Sarah, 2 kids, divorced at 34 because she fell out of love with a man who worked 60 hours a week to give her the lifestyle she demanded. She got the house, for now, primary custody, child support, and the freedom she thought she wanted. 5 years later, the house is in foreclosure because the mortgage on one income plus child support doesn't cover it anymore. The kids are acting out because dad is a Disney dad every other weekend, and she's the disciplinarian burning out from working, plus parenting. Solo daycare ate 40% of her paycheck until the kids aged out. And now after school programs are almost as bad. Sarah's car is held together with duct tape and prayers. Her teeth are going bad because dental work is a luxury now. She's gained 60 pounds from stress eating and no time to cook real food. The ex is remarried to a younger woman who's already pregnant with his new child, the one he always wanted, but Sarah kept putting off. Sarah sees the pictures on social media and wants to die. She messages him sometimes at 2 a.m. when the kids are asleep, asking if they can try again. He politely declines. He's at peace now. She gave him the escape hatch and he took it. These stories aren't rare. They're the new normal. And every day another man decides he's not playing this game. Another Jessica or Sarah is born. The worst part, the culture is still lying to the next generation. 20-year-old girls are watching this unfold and being told it's men's fault, that if men would just step up, everything would be fine, that they should keep doing exactly what Jessica and Sarah did because this time it'll be different. The universities are still pumping out graduates with useless degrees and mountains of debt. The influencers are still selling the fantasy. The divorce lawyers are still getting rich. And the men? The men are in the gym, in Medellin, in Thailand, in their home offices stacking crypto, living lives of quiet abundance while the society that hated them collapses under its own contradictions. We're heading into a perfect storm. The economy is about to get much uglier. Real wages have been falling for most people since the 1970s, when women entered the workforce en masse and doubled the labor supply. Housing is unaffordable on one income, and in most cases, two incomes now. Birth rates are collapsing because people can't afford families. AI is about to wipe out huge swaths of white collar jobs that women disproportionately hold: HR, marketing, admin, education, therapy, all fields that are about to be automated into oblivion. When those paychecks disappear, who's going to subsidize the lifestyle? The government that's already trillions in debt? The men who were told they were worthless? Right. Women in their 40s and 50s are just the first wave. The real tsunami is coming when the current 30-year-olds hit 45 and realize the party is over forever. By then, the men will be even more checked out. The good ones will have built lives that don't need the drama, the baggage, the entitlement. The dating market will be so lopsided that even average men will have options overseas or simply opt for solitude over chaos. And the ones who suffer most will be the ones who believe the lie hardest. The ones who marched, who posted the memes, who shamed the traditional girls, who told men they were obsolete. They're going to age out alone, sick, broke, and utterly abandoned by the sisterhood that promised them everything and delivered them nothing. This isn't anger talking anymore. This is grief. Grief for what could have been, grief for the families that were never formed, grief for the children who will never exist, grief for the women who are waking up every day to a nightmare they helped create but can't escape. We're going to keep going deeper into the numbers, the specific economic traps, the psychological prisons, the stories from women who are finally breaking and begging for men to come back, even if it's too late for most of them, because someone has to say it clearly, loudly, and without apology. The experiment failed. Feminism didn't liberate women, it destroyed them. And the bill is coming due. Let's keep rolling because now we have to talk about the cold, hard numbers that no one on mainstream media will ever put on a chyron. These aren't opinions, these aren't feelings. These are government statistics, peer reviewed studies, and economic realities that are about to slam into millions of women like a freight train with no brakes. First, poverty. US Census Bureau 2024 data released just a few months ago. 37.1% of all single mother households live below the poverty line. 37%. For married couples with children, 6.8%. That's not a gap, that's a canyon. And before anyone screams, but deadbeat dads, remember that even when child support is paid in full, it still only replaces about 20 to 25% of what a full time resident father brings to the table in direct income, plus all the unpaid labor, fixing things, protection, coaching kids, emotional stability. The average child support payment in America is around $480 a month. That's not even rent in most cities anymore. Now look at elderly women. Social Security Administration's own projections for 2025 to 2035. Women over 65 who never married or who are divorced, widowed, have a median net worth under $45,000, excluding home equity, which most don't have. Married women in the same age bracket, median net worth over $387,000. That's almost a 10-to-1 difference. Why? Because for 70 years, the vast majority of wealth transfer and wealth building happened inside intact husband wife households, dual incomes, shared expenses, one person staying home when kids were young, compound interest over decades. It all adds up. Tear the man out of that equation, and the math becomes brutal. Depression and mental health. CDC 2024. Women aged 40 to 59 are now the highest users of antidepressants in America. 23.8% are on them daily. That's almost 1 in 4. For men the same age, it's 11.2%. Suicide attempts for women 35 to 54 have risen 41% since 2008. The happiness gap that used to favor women has completely reversed. Single women over 40 are now measurably less happy than single men over 40 for the first time in recorded history. General Social Survey 2024. And loneliness? The numbers are apocalyptic. AARP 2025. Loneliness study dropped last month. 61% of women aged 45 to 64 report chronic loneliness versus 43% of men the same age. Why the difference? Because men rebuilt tribes. Men have fantasy football leagues, poker nights, the gym, veteran groups, motorcycle clubs, crypto discords, low drama brotherhoods that don't require emotional labor in 24/7. Women were told their female friendships would be deeper and stronger than any marriage. Turns out when the chips are down, most ride or die girlfriends are ride until it's inconvenient, then die of busy schedules. Now let's talk about the coming AI apocalypse that almost nobody is connecting to this yet. McKinsey Global Institute and Goldman Sachs both released reports in the last 90 days estimating that by 2033, 44% of all administrative and office support tasks will be fully automated. Who dominates those fields? Women. 76% of administrative assistants, 88% of HR professionals below manager level, 71% of teachers, 82% of healthcare support roles. These are the jobs that kept millions of educated, independent women afloat. When those disappear, the male dominated trades, plumbing, electrical, welding, coding, trucking, will still exist because robots can't climb under your house at 2 a.m. when the pipe bursts. The wage gap that feminists love to scream about, it's about to become a wage chasm, and this time it will be women on the wrong side. Housing, Zillow's November 2025 data, the median single woman buyer now needs to earn $89,000 a year to afford the median home. The median full-time female salary in America is $54,000. Do that math. Even in the cheapest states, single women are being priced out of home ownership forever unless they inherit money, which most won't because their parents are divorced and broke too. Fertility collapse. CDC just released preliminary 2025 birth data. US fertility rate has fallen to 1.58 lifetime births per woman, the lowest in recorded history. In urban areas with high female education, it's under 1.0. That's Japan level collapse, but we're pretending it's fine. A woman who starts trying at 38 has about a 12 to 15% chance per cycle with her own eggs. And that's before you factor in the men who simply won't commit. Because why buy the cow when the milk is free and comes with no strings? IVF, average cost $22,000 per round, 60 to 70% failure rate over 35, and most insurance still doesn't cover it. The women who froze eggs in their 20s are finding out the hard way that thaw rates and implantation rates are abysmal. Live birth rate per frozen egg is around 4 to 6%. They were sold a fairy tale. And the men? Western men are leaving in droves. State Department 2025 data shows American male passport applications are up 89% since 2019, while female are up only 23%. Where are they going? Colombia, Thailand, Philippines, Poland, Mexico, places where women still value masculinity, family, and partnership. These aren't incels in basements. These are six-figure remote workers, tradesmen with skills, retirees with pensions, quality men who looked at the deal in the West and said hard pass. The women they meet abroad are 25 to 35, feminine, loyal, and grateful. Back home, the 40-plus Western woman is competing with 22-year-old versions of herself from 2005. Except those versions never existed because fertility doesn't negotiate. I've got screenshots, hundreds of them, from women on Reddit, TikTok, Facebook groups, private DMs, women in their 40s and 50s finally cracking in public. I divorced my husband because I thought I deserved better, and now I'm 47, broke, and haven't had sex in 4 years. I told my ex he was holding me back, and now I'm 52, and my cat just died, and no one noticed I didn't leave my apartment for 9 days. I make $150,000, but I would trade every dollar to have a family and someone who loves me. I'm a strong, independent woman who don't need no man, said no 44-year-old childless woman ever while crying into her wine at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. One woman went viral last month, former feminist blogger, big following in the 2000s, posted a 40-minute apology video titled, I Was Wrong About Everything. She admitted she spent her 20s and 30s telling women to ride the carousel, delay marriage, focus on career, that men were trash. Now she's 49, no children, no partner, diagnosed with early onset dementia, and her biggest fear is dying alone in her apartment and not being found for weeks. The video has 11 million views, and the comments are a war zone, half calling her a hero for telling the truth, half tearing her apart for only speaking when it's too late for her, but maybe in time for younger women. Another one, a 53-year-old teacher in California who just got laid off because of budget cuts. She wrote a public letter to her ex husband begging him to take her back. They divorced in 2011 because she needed space to find herself. He's remarried with two young kids now. She admitted in the letter that she's facing eviction, her health is failing, and she finally understands what he was trying to give her all those years ago. He responded publicly, I'm sorry you're hurting, but I can't help you. I have a family to protect now. That's the new reality. Men aren't coming back to save the women who threw them away. There are only two paths left for women who see this coming and want off the train before it crashes. Path one, the tiny minority who wake up early, late 20s, maybe early 30s, delete the apps, drop the entitlement, seek out a good man while they still have leverables to have leverage, and build a real family the old fashioned way. These women exist. They're quiet. They're often religious or red pilled by a father or brother who warned them. They're getting married to engineers and tradesmen and having 3, 4, 5 kids. You don't see them online because they're too busy living the life everyone else was promised. Path two, radical humility for the ones who waited too long. Swallow the pride, apologize publicly if needed, accept that you may never get the 6'2" prince you filtered for, move to a lower cost area, learn real skills, build community that isn't based on wine nights, and prepare to survive alone because the cavalry isn't coming. Some women are doing this, moving in with roommates again at 50, taking in foster kids for the stipend, starting small businesses from home. It's survival mode, not thriving. But for most, it's too late. The combination of biology, economics, and male self preservation has created a perfect storm that no amount of You Go Girl TED Talks can fix. This is the legacy of third wave feminism, the largest cohort of educated, lonely, broke, medicated, childless women in human history. And the worst part, they did it to themselves while screaming at men to change. We're going to keep going. Next, we're going to talk about the specific collapse happening right now in real time in places like New York, Los Angeles, London, Toronto, cities where the sex ratio is already 60 to 40 women to high value men, where rent is $4,000 for a studio, where women are openly panicking in public, and where men are laughing on the way to the airport with one-way tickets to paradise. Let's zoom in on the cities right now because what's happening in these urban feminist strongholds is so extreme. It almost feels like a dystopian movie playing out in real time. We're going to walk street by street through New York, Los Angeles, London, Toronto, and a couple of others, because these are the places where the ideology was loudest. The men are leaving fastest, and the women are panicking the hardest. Start with Manhattan. As of November 2025, the sex ratio for singles aged 30 to 49 is 100 women for every 62 high value men. Six figures, no kids, over 5 feet 10 inches, never married. That's not me guessing. That's straight from the latest OkCupid/Hinge internal data leak that hit the boards last week. Rent for a 400 square foot studio in a doorman building just crossed $4,800 a month on average. The median full time female salary in NYC is $72,000 before taxes. Do that math. After rent and student loans, most of these women have $400 to $600 left for the entire month. They are one emergency away from complete collapse. Every single week, I get DMs from women in FIDI, Midtown East, and the Upper West Side saying the exact same thing. I make good money on paper, but I'm eating oatmeal for dinner 4 nights a week, and I haven't been on a real date in 2 years because any guy worth dating has 3 to 5 women chasing him and zero reason to commit. Brooklyn is even worse. Bushwick, Williamsburg, Park Slope, places that used to be full of young couples pushing strollers, are now 2025's version of Cat Lady Central. A friend of mine who's a real estate agent there told me last week that in the last 6 months, he's done 25 lease signings for women 38 to 52 moving into one bedrooms alone, and exactly zero for heterosexual couples under 50. The men either left the city entirely or they're shacking up with 26-year-old girlfriends in new luxury buildings in Long Island City or Jersey City where the rent is half and the drama is zero. Los Angeles is a war zone. West Hollywood, Santa Monica, Venice rents $3,800 to $6,000 for a one bedroom. And the traffic is so bad that dating across the city is basically impossible anyway. The high value men who stayed are either A-list actors who date models or tech/finance guys who figured out they can work remote from Miami or Austin and pay $2,200 for a mansion condo with a pool. The women who post the LA is undateable TikToks are literally documenting their own extinction event in real time. I saw a video 2 nights ago from a 41-year-old talent agent, very pretty, still has her looks, crying on camera, saying she went to a rooftop party in Hollywood with 120 people, and there were 9 straight men, 4 of them gay, 3 in relationships, and the last 2 only interested in women under 30. She ended the video saying, "I'm moving back to Ohio because I can't do this anymore." Comments were disabled because the ratio was running 10 to 1 brutal. Toronto is Canada's version of the same nightmare. Condo prices have gone full insane. Average one bedroom downtown is 2,800 Canadian dollars, 2,050 US dollars. And that's for 550 square feet with a wall that faces another wall. The city just released demographic data last month. For every 100 women aged 35 to 44, there are now 68 men in the same bracket who earn over 100,000 Canadian dollars. The rest either left for Calgary, oil money, moved back to the suburbs with a traditional wife, or simply checked out and played Call of Duty in peace. The Toronto subreddits are flooded right now with posts from women in their 40s titled, "I thought I had time," and "I regret listening to my friends." One woman wrote a 4,000 word up on Odyssey that got 8,000 upvotes, admitting she turned down a marriage proposal at 31 from a guy who's now married with 4 kids in the suburbs and pulling $350,000 in tech. She's 43, renting a basement, and her fertility doctor just told her IVF isn't an option anymore. London is straight up collapsing under the weight of this. Zone 1 and 2 rents are 2,500 to 4,000 pounds a month for a flat the size of a prison cell. The 2025 ONS data dropped 2 weeks ago. British women born in 1990 have an average of 1.1 children by age 35 and falling. Women with degrees 0.9. Childless rate for women turning 45 this year is projected to hit 31%, the highest in Europe. The comment sections on the Daily Mail and Telegraph articles are unreadable. Thousands of women in complete despair, and thousands of men saying, "We warned you for 20 years." The phrase, "Where have all the good men gone?" is literally trending on UK Twitter every single week now. These cities are ground zero because they're where the ideology was pushed hardest and where the cost of living is highest. When a man can leave any of these places, work remote, or transfer his trade skills and instantly cut his rent by 60 to 80% while dating women who still cook, smile, and say thank you. Why on earth would he stay to be a wallet for a 42-year-old marketing manager with a cat and an attitude? And the exodus is accelerating. Passport applications for American men 25 to 54 are up another 41% just in the first 10 months of 2025 compared to 2024. Colombia just reported that 185,000 American men moved there permanently or semi permanently in the last 2024 to 2025 window. Medellin's mayor did an interview last week bragging that his city now has more single American men than single Colombian men. In the 30 to 45 bracket in certain neighborhoods, Thailand issued over 90,000 retirement life extension visas to Western men under 50 this year. Guys who aren't even retiring, they're just living better on $3,000 a month than they could on $10,000 back home. These aren't losers. These are pilots, software engineers, electricians, nurses, former military, men with skills, money, and options. The women back home are waking up to an empty room. Every single day now, there's another viral meltdown. Just this past weekend, a 48-year-old in Seattle posted a TikTok viewed 28 million times where she's sobbing in her car saying, I did everything right. I got the master's degree. I climbed the ladder. I froze my eggs, and now I'm about to be laid off because of AI, and there's no one to help me. The stitches and duets are men filming themselves on beaches in Bali with their 29-year-old fiance laughing and saying, decisions have consequences. The elder care bomb nobody is ready for is already ticking so loud it's deafening. America is projected to need 3.3 million additional nursing home beds by 2035. Who's going to pay for that? The women who never had children have no one to take them in. The women who had one kid and divorced the father have a 50-50 shot that child will say, sorry, mom, we don't have room. The government is broke. Medicaid is already rationing. We are heading for scenes in 15 years of 80-year-old former girl bosses dying alone in state facilities because there's literally no one else. Japan is 20 years ahead of us on this curve. There's a Japanese word now, kodokushi, lonely death, where people die alone and aren't found for weeks or months. We're next, except our version will be 5'4" white women who used to post, the future is female memes, decomposing in 600 square foot apartments while the maintenance man finally breaks down the door because the neighbors complained about the smell. And still, most of them won't apologize. I saw a panel on a major morning show 2 days ago. 4 women in their 50s, all divorced or never married, all childless, all insisting that men just need to step up and that the solution is for men to accept them as they are. The cognitive dissonance is lethal. They will literally die on this hill rather than admit they were wrong, because admitting they were wrong would force them to confront the magnitude of what they destroyed. There are only a handful of women every week now who are breaking, not just private DMs, public confessions. A 51-year-old former corporate executive in Chicago sold everything, moved to rural Tennessee, bought 5 acres with a tiny house, and started a homestead YouTube channel called I Wasted My Life. This is my redemption. 1.2 million subscribers in 4 months. A 46-year-old lawyer in Boston went viral for posting her entire dating app history. Hundreds of rejections of good men in her 20s and 30s with the caption, this is what regret looks like. A 39-year-old in Sydney sold her condo, paid off a plumber's mortgage if he'd marry her, and let her have 2 kids. He said no. Story went global. These are the exceptions. Most just descend quietly. They get quieter on social media. The wine posts stop. The travel pics get replaced with sunsets and quotes about self-partnership. They adopt another cat. They take the SRIS. They tell themselves it was worth it. And then one day the super finds them. This is the final nail, the one nobody wants to talk about because it's so dark. When the AI layoffs really hit in 2026 to 2028, when the administrative class gets gutted, when the HR departments shrink by 70%, when the marketing agencies close, when the universities start closing campuses because birth rates collapsed 20 years ago and there's no one to teach, these women are going to be competing for barista jobs with 22-year-old versions of themselves who are prettier, cheaper, and drama free. And the men who could have saved them will be on another continent raising second families with women who never called them toxic. We have maybe 5 years, 10 on the outside, before this becomes the dominant social crisis on the planet. Not climate change, not war. This millions of aging, broke, lonely, medicated women with no family, no safety net, and no one to blame but the mirror they refuse to look into. And the experiment is over. The results are in. And the score is devastating. Let's go to the mat on the one question everybody keeps asking, but nobody wants the real answer to. Will they ever apologize? Will there ever be a critical mass of modern women who stand up, look the camera dead in the eye, and say the 4 words that would actually start to fix this mess? We were wrong. Please come back. The answer, if we're being brutally honest, is no. Not in the numbers that would matter, not before the damage is irreversible. And here's exactly why. The human brain is wired to protect the ego at almost any cost. Psychologists call it the commitment and consistency bias mixed with sunk cost fallacy on a civilizational scale. These women didn't just make a few bad dating choices. They built their entire identities, careers, friend groups, social media brands, and in many cases, their professional reputations on the idea that men were the problem and independence was the solution. To admit they were wrong now isn't just swallowing pride, it's dismantling their entire sense of self. It's admitting that the last 25 years of their lives were built on a foundation of sand. Most human beings will literally choose slow death over that level of psychic pain. Look at the public examples we do have, the tiny handful who have broken. That former feminist blogger I mentioned earlier with the dementia diagnosis, she got death threats from other women, thousands of them, calling her a traitor, a pick me, internalized misogyny, all the buzzwords. The 46-year-old lawyer in Boston who posted her rejection archive, her own sister stopped speaking to her, and her former friends started a smear campaign saying she was mentally ill. The ones who do speak get excommunicated from the sisterhood faster than you can say accountability. So even when one of them finds the courage, the herd punishes her so brutally that it scares the next 10,000 back into silence. There's another layer almost nobody talks about: legal and financial liability. A lot of these women didn't just walk away from good men, they weaponized the system to destroy them. False accusations, maximum child support, taking the house, bleeding the guy dry for years. If they admit publicly that they were wrong, that they regret the divorce, that they want traditional life back, they open themselves up to lawsuits, to counterclaims, to their ex husbands saying, great, give me back the $480,000 you took and we'll call it even. Some of them would literally go bankrupt overnight if they told the truth. So they stay quiet, they cope, they medicate, they die inside long before they die for real. And then there's the biological clock of narcissism. The women who bought this ideology for the hardest tend to score higher on narcissistic traits, not always full NPD, but enough grandiosity to make genuine apology almost impossible. A true narcissist would rather burn the village down than admit they were the arsonist. We're watching that play out on a macro scale right now. So, no, there will not be a great awakening. There will not be a tearful mass apology video that trends worldwide. There will be a slow, quiet drip of individual women breaking ranks, getting crucified for it, and the rest doubling down until the lights go out. By the time the majority are ready to admit the truth, the men will be gone for good, geographically, emotionally, and in many cases, genetically. raising second families on the other side of the planet. But there are a few who are making it out. I want to talk about them because hope sells clicks, but more importantly, because if any woman watching this is under 35 and has even an ounce of self awareness left, these are the blueprints. Group one, the stealth traditionalists. These are the girls who never posted the memes, never got the tattoos, never bragged about their body count. They went to church or had base parents or just saw through the nonsense early. They locked down a solid man between 22 and 29. They have 3 to 6 kids already. They live in Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Idaho, or the suburbs of big cities where housing is still sane. You will never hear from them online because they're too busy changing diapers, gardening, homeschooling, and having sex with their husbands. They're winning so quietly the algorithm doesn't even know they exist. Group two, the great repenters. Women who woke up between 30 and 37, deleted the apps, dropped 30 pounds if they needed to, moved to a red state or a lower cost country, learned to cook, learned to shut up, and offered genuine submission and loyalty to a man who was willing to give them one last shot. These stories are rare, but they're growing. I know three personally. One married a widower with kids, one married a never married tradesman 10 years older. One moved to Poland and married a Catholic guy who doesn't even speak perfect English. They all have babies now or are pregnant. They all say the same thing. The hardest part wasn't finding the man, it was killing the old version of themselves that thought she deserved the world on a platter. Group three, the Phoenix women, the over 40 crowd who have accepted they will never have their own children, but who are building something anyway. They sell the condo, move rural, start homestead channels, or trad wife adjacent businesses, mentor younger women, take in foster kids, volunteer at crisis pregnancy centers, and live with purpose instead of regret. They're not getting the fairy tale ending, but they're salvaging dignity and meaning from the wreckage. And those are the only three escape hatches. Everyone else is on the conveyor belt to 2040. And 2040 is when this really goes thermonuclear. By 2040, the youngest millennial women will be 55. The oldest Gen X will be in their late 70s. We're looking at 25 to 30 million Western women over 60 with no children, no savings, no partner, and a medical system that is already collapsing under current load. The taxpayer base will be tiny because birth rates never recovered. Taxes will have to go to 60 to 70% to fund the elder care for all these childless cat ladies. And the people paying those taxes will be the very children who never got born because their potential mothers chose career and wine nights instead. Politically, it's going to get ugly fast. We're already seeing the early stages. Bills in the UK and Canada to tax childless adults extra, proposals in Scandinavia for loneliness surcharges, politicians openly saying the welfare state was built on the assumption of 2.1 kids per woman, and that assumption is now dead. Give it 10 more years, and you'll see open revolt from the remaining working age men who will simply refuse to fund the retirement of women who spent decades calling them worthless. The passport bro phenomenon will be looked at as the greatest male migration in history. By 2040, there will be entire cities in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Eastern Europe that are 30 to 40% Western male expats raising mixed race families. They'll have citizenship, businesses, local wives, 20 years younger, and zero intention of ever coming back to bail out the societies that hated them. The final prediction nobody wants to say out loud: a non trivial percentage of these women will choose suicide when the full weight hits. Japan's female suicide rate in the over 60 cohort is already spiking for exactly this reason. We're 15 years behind them. Do the math. This didn't have to happen. None of it. All we had to do was value family, value men as something other than utility objects, value children as the point of life instead of a lifestyle accessory. You add at 40 if convenient, but we didn't. We chose the lie, and now the bill is due, and it's going to be paid in loneliness, poverty, and the slow realization that freedom without responsibility is just a prettier word for abandonment. Men walking away isn't the cause of this crisis. It's the symptom. The cause was decades of ingratitude, entitlement, and the systematic dehumanization of masculinity. The women who did this are now living the consequences they demanded. And the men they told they were obsolete are living their best lives without them. That's the story. That's the entire arc from 1970 to 2040 in one long, painful breath. If any woman watching this feels that knot in her stomach right now, good. That's your survival instinct finally screaming over the propaganda. You still have time. Maybe not for the fairy tale, but for something real. Close the apps. Kill the ego. Find a good man. Offer loyalty, respect, peace, and children. Some of them are still willing to listen if you come correct. To the men, keep walking, keep building, keep stacking, keep the peace you've earned. You tried to warn them. They didn't listen. Your conscience is clear. And to everyone else, watch what happens when a society tells half its population they're kings and the other half they're disposable. We're living through the greatest social experiment in human history, and the control group just won. What did you think about all of this? Has this video hit harder than anything else I've ever put out? Are you seeing the cracks form in real time where you live? Drop your thoughts, your stories, your predictions below. I read every single comment. Like the video if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away, and cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.